football, same deal. Football coaches are better CEOs than wrestling coaches. They have to be. They have 12, 13 assistants. They have 100 players. Whether they meant to or not, they have to figure out they can't do it all themselves. We may not have figured all that out. Okay? So those are kind of some of the things we talk about. Back to this 12 pillars. Work harder than you do on your job. Live a life of health. The gift of relationships. Me and Mike Moore have a relationship. He calls me, he asks me for money, I give if I can. Okay? He comes to Arkansas. He gets me to do different things. I have insurance carriers, okay, that are my relationships. Now, this next point is really, really important. In the insurance business, you guys understand insurance enough to understand this. There's three players. There's the insurance carrier, there's my employees, and there's the client. How many people think the client is the most valuable of those three? Raise your hand. Raise them high, don't be bashful. Raise them high. Okay? How many people think my employees are the most valuable part of that equation? Raise your hand. Okay? And how many think the carrier is the most valuable part of that equation? Okay? Well, let me tell you what I think. When I first started the insurance agency, I thought the client was the most important. Then I probably thought the employee was the next important and the carrier was the least important. As I grew, okay, and as I made mistakes and after I'd shoot a few of those carriers out because they didn't give my client what I wanted, those carriers got pissed off and they didn't want to work with me as much. And then I figured out real quick that the client is what most people think is important. But if I have the relationship with the carrier, I'm talking about we're like this. I can get anything I need for the client. Now, the person that delivers it to the client are my employees. And if I don't have good employees, I'm not going to have any clients. So it's the exact backwards way of looking at things. The most important is the carrier, then the employee, and then the client. I take care of the first two, I get all the clients I want. Okay? Now, in your business, you've got the wrestlers, okay? You've got your coaching staff, and you've got the administration. Or I could break it down to wrestlers, fans and boosters, and administration. Now, I'm sure we would all think the wrestlers are most important, but I'm going to argue they're the least important. If you have the relationship with the vice president who oversees your athletic programs, okay? If you have fans that love your program that will help support financially and will show up, and when we bring a wrestling recruit in, we have all that support, you get assistant coaches and new uniforms and cool workout facilities and all that kind of stuff, then you will get the best wrestlers. But we're doing it the exact opposite if you're like 90%. We're the exact opposite. If I make my wrestlers really good and we win national championships, everybody will come see us. There's some truth to that, but you can do it a heck of a lot easier by getting those administrators and those kind of people involved, getting those fans involved. So that's what I'm going to kind of talk about a little bit today. How I would do that or some ideas on how to do it. But first I need 3 volunteers. Okay, raise your hand if you're a volunteer. Stand up if you want to volunteer. Now I'm going to pay my volunteers $20 for volunteering. So I pick them, right? Anybody else wants to volunteer? You get $20. My final offer is if I choose you to volunteer and you do what I tell you to do perfectly, I will give you $100. Do I have any more volunteers? If you were in the first, who was the first person up? Who was in the first group up?
You're the first group up.
Okay. I'll take you. Come on up. All right. And let me kind of walk around. I want you. Okay.
Get them.
Not one woman stood up. I'm ashamed. You're going to stand up? She stood up and sat back down. Are you unbelievable? Come on. Okay. All right. I normally ask for 20, I'm going to ask for 30. Now I got to go over there.
What?
Girls,
I'm a wrestler.
you're a wrestler? All right, 30 push-ups. You guys count. Here we go. 30 push-ups, $100 if you get them perfect. Here we go. What do you guys think? Pretty good, huh?
There we go.
All right. How many did you do? 20 dollars. How many did you do? 32. How many did you do? How many did you do? I'm going to give you one more chance, but it's got to be the right answer. How many push-ups did you do? You don't know, you lost count. But you meant to do 30, right?
I started before her and stopped after her.
This is really important, okay? Loretta Lynn, the country music singer, said, you have to be first, best, or different. Now, the reason I chose this guy is he was one of the first ones to be a volunteer. Remember, at the Hatcher Agency, I get so mad because I tell people that you can't get people to do anything without an incentive. I can get mad about it, and sometimes I do, and then sometimes I realize it's reality. You can't get anybody to do anything without incentives. And there's an incentive even if there is no incentive. If there's no money offered, why volunteer? If you're being paid a salary, why work the 8 hours? Why not cut it short at 6? You have an incentive to do as little as possible for your salary. If your athletic directors came to you and said, I want you all to know no matter whether you win or lose, no matter whether you have 2 wrestlers or 50, I'm not firing any of you. You have a lifetime contract. I imagine winning would go down. I imagine number of wrestlers would go down. I imagine work ethic would go down. So when I offered $20, we got more volunteers, right? And we're the guys setting an example. Okay, not beating you up, it's the way everybody is. Then when I offered 100, we got even more volunteers, right? So Loretta Lynn said first, I chose him for first. Then she said you have to be best. I chose him because nobody was really dressed up today of my volunteers, but the red shirt stood out. So one of the things I tell my staff is you got to look good getting off the bus. If I'm choosing between 2 wrestling coaches and one's fit, one's dressed nice, and one's this, I might choose him to go there versus the other. If I got 2 salesmen walking in, Hannah, stand up. Whitley, stand up. Okay, now these 2 are Wendy Heisman Trophy finalists when they were in high school. Okay? That's why I hired them at the Hatcher Agency. I don't care about them just being an athlete, they got to be smart, etc. Stand back up. Okay? Now you guys have to buy from one of them. Okay? You only get to buy from one. How many guys buy from Whitley? Raise your hand. How many buy from Hannah? Okay? She looks better getting off the bus, doesn't she? Right, sit down. Okay? So, how you look might make the difference. So I like the red shirt. And then different. I was looking for a woman. I was looking for a woman to stand up and think she's different than everybody else, right? So sometimes I'll choose a program because it's different. Now, what if you had all 3? What if you were the first out of the gate in sales? What if you were the best dressed? And what if you brought a different product? Would you sell them all day long? Okay? Now, the final piece is, I've been doing this, talks from time to time, and I'll bring people up to do this. I've only had one time where somebody did the push-ups right. And it was in Alma College, my college, and I'm proud to tell you who the guy was that did it. We were speaking to all the athletes in Alma, and I brought him up, and when I got to the 3rd guy, he said, I did 31. I said, why did you do 31? He said, because a good team always does one more. He was in pledging, and one of the things they teach him in pledging is that no matter what they ask you to do one more. And I'm sure you guys have all heard that a champion does one more, etc. But you guys are all champions. And I want it so brainwashed in my kids when I'm coaching. If I tell them to do 10, they know it's automatically 11. If I tell them to do 30, it's automatically 31. But that's not the important point. It's when you get through wrestling and you get out in life and you're trying to get that promotion, etc. If the rest of your life you remember what Loretta Lynn said, be first, best, and different. No matter what your boss asks you to do more than they asked. No matter what the charity asks you to do, give more than they asked for. Okay, if Mike comes down and asks me to give a talk, come down and give a talk and give away free books. Give more than he asked for, then you'll always separate yourself from the competition. Now this guy did more than was asked for. I do like the fact that he said, I started earlier and I finished late. We've all heard of that before, right? Be the first one to practice and the last one out, and then he gets $100 anyway. Thank you guys. All right, I'm just going to start rattling off things that I would just throw ideas and maybe one of them will work for you. Okay? If I were coach at a college wrestling program today, the first one may hurt some of your feelings. My daughter went to some other colleges before she went to the University of Arkansas. University of Arkansas, by the way, is not going to fix it either. Okay? But it's a tough deal sometimes in Division I sports for girls, okay, because staying politically correct here, you know, a lot of girl basketball players are not girls, and my girls are girly girls. Okay, so it's kind of tough. So she's transferred where she's got some friends that, you know, they spend. The problem with Division I athletics is the coach that coaches basketball or football makes a ton of money. You guys don't. Okay? But if you were making $500,000 or $1 million a year and you gave out 15 scholarships, you would want to control those athletes. They are your investment. You don't want to lose your $500,000 child. So they made my daughter sleep with the same girl every night, eat with her, study with her, travel with her. Now, if I took all you guys and said, we're going to put you with all gay guys all day long, and we're going to make you do those things, you're going to be very happy, it'd be fairly difficult with you. Okay? So I have gotten, I would say, a bad taste just to understanding, because when I went to college, I went to a liberal arts Division III school, and my coach cared about me more as a person than he did as a wrestler. And he didn't mind me being in a fraternity. And he didn't mind me playing other sports, because I played 3. And he didn't mind me being in student government. And he didn't mind me going to class. And he didn't mind those things, because when we got all done, he wanted me to be a winner later. Now, I will tell you, I would hire any Division III wrestler over a Division I wrestler unless they could show me something different. If I hire a guy from Missouri, I've been Missouri coach, and all he did was wrestle for 4 years, he did nothing else. There's nothing else on his resume. I'm probably not very interested. Now, Hannah back there, I'll tell you a little bit about Hannah Whitley. Hannah's a 397 at Centenary. So that means she's a bookworm, right? All she does is study. But she was president of her sorority. She was the state champion in the 100, the 200, and the 400. She was in dance, and she was Miss Teen Louisiana. I would call that a well-rounded person. I hired her on the spot. Whitley, 3-sport high school athlete, football, basketball, baseball, goes to college, plays baseball and basketball, okay? President of his fraternity, hired instantly. Now here's the argument, because at the end of the day I said, you guys want to win. There are coaches, and I know 2 of them, that have won more than anybody. John McDonald at University of Arkansas wins 42 national titles. Okay? I know Frank Rawls well. Okay? Frank Rawls tells me how he hired John McDonald. You see, John McDonald was a high school coach at Greenland High School. And Greenland's right next to Fayetteville. And he's out there coaching, you know, and all of a sudden he sees John McDonald running his cross-country team, and he's leading the freaking pack. Every day is John McDonald running with his athletes. He's not on a bike. He's not in the car yelling at him. He's out there running with him. And he watched that for a couple years, and he said, I'm just going to hire the guy. I'm not interviewing anybody else. I like what he does. I'm going to hire him. It took him about 10 years, and then he won 42 national titles, the most of any coach in any sport.